Hello, everyone, and hi to all the future YouTube people as well. So, welcome to another edition of Identity in 15, powered by WSO2 Identity Server. So, today we are going to take a look at how you can configure signing into Zoom with your organization account. And today I'm your host, Chamat Somavikrama. I'm an engineer at the Identity and Access Management team of WSO2. So, before we get into configuring actual configurations, let's take a look at why we should configure single sign-on, or else basically logging into your Zoom account with your organization credentials would mean that you will have to configure single sign-on for Zoom. So one of the major benefits that your users would get from configuring single sign-on is that users would only have to log in one time when you have configured single sign-on, and also by using only your organization credentials. And also when you take a look at Zoom, it provides this feature where it would automatically provision users when the user tries to log in. And also, as an administrator for your organization, you can always tighten up the security in the authentication process, where you can add multi-factor authentication and other advanced adaptive authentication sort of thing to your authentication flows when configuring the authentication for your service provider. And also another major benefit that you'll get as an administrator is that you'll now will be able to directly edit users' information and their access to certain features in the Zoom organization straight from the identity provider configured for your organization. So before we move on further, if you have any questions regarding any of the clarifications I do, and if you have any clarifications to be made, please drop them down in the comment section in our stream. Right, so let's move on. So this would be the basic flow of authentication when the user tries to log into Zoom when you have configured single sign-on. First, the user would log into Zoom in their browser, and then Zoom would send an authentication request to the identity provider. Now, the identity provider in this third step would prompt the user for authentication, and upon successful authentication, would also ask user his or her consent to share some of the user's attributes. Attributes such as username, email address, the photos, and everything you would do when you are creating a user profile. So when user gives consent to those to access to those claims, identity server would send back those details to Zoom in the response. And what Zoom would do is it would read out these claims from the response, and it would map those claims to their user attributes and create a user profile on their behalf, on your behalf. So going back to the previous slide, let's take an example for a moment, and let's consider an online learning platform like a school or a university which tries to do online classes or lectures via Zoom. So think of you as an administrator for this organization. So one of the major concerns you would have to face is that you need to create separate user accounts for the Zoom organization as well. When you want to give users certain access to classes or past recordings and stuff, you'll need to have users created on the Zoom organization as well. But now with single sign-on, Zoom would do that for you. So it would create a user on Zoom's organization, and what you will have to worry about is only the user profile in the organization itself. So if the identity server is configured, you will have access to remove user privileges and also edit users information. So you can do everything at one place. So this is one of the major benefits you will get when you configure this feature with Zoom. So moving on, we need to have a couple of things at our hand before starting the configuration step. So the first thing you would need is a business or an education account for Zoom. And next thing is something called a vanity URL. So this vanity URL would not be provided by default when you get a business or an education Zoom account. You will have to request it from Zoom, and Zoom support would provide it with a couple of days notice. And the next thing would be an identity server installation, and also admin privileges for both the Zoom and the WSO2 Identity Server instances. So to show you what this vanity URL looks like, so now I have a business trial account activated, and here in this section, vanity URL section, we have a URL called WSO2 support.zoom. So this is the vanity URL for my organization. So this is the one I will be using for the demo today. And also for the identity server instance, I am choosing our latest 5.11 release. So you can go over to this page. The link is there in the description as well. So you can go over to this page and download any of these from installation options. So that's about that. And the next thing is the hands-on session. So we'll get into that one. So first I'll show you some of the basic configurations I have done in the identity server side. So I already have an identity server running on my local machine. So if you notice here, there's slight differences from what you will get by default. So here, if you have already noticed, I have a different host name to the one that is coming out of the box. So to configure this, we need to go over to the deployment toml file of the identity server. So I will open that up and show you the configuration. Repository conf deployment toml. So here in the host name, what you would get by default is localhost. But the problem is these sites don't support localhost URL. So here for a workaround, I have added this host name to be the host name of my deployment. And also there's this other change. If you remember, we had something called a vanity URL. So I have added that vanity URL as an allowed origin for my course configurations of the identity server. So these two are the only changes I have done to the identity server's deployment toml file, apart from the default configurations. So since we have that out of the way, let's go ahead and open up the console app. All right. So here I would use the default credentials, default administrator credentials to log in to the console app. And it will show me this page. So first, what I would do is we need to create a new application. So I will click on new application and select web application from this one. And here it asks me to provide a name. So let's just add identity in 15 Zoom. And as per the protocol, I'm selecting SAML. The next thing it asks for is a issue ID, sorry. So for this issuer ID, what we need to enter is the vanity URL of our Zoom organization. So I will copy this one from here and paste it here. So the next thing we need to provide is something called Assertion Consumer URL. So for this one, in the Zoom documentation, if you can refer to, it would say the Assertion Consumer URL for your Zoom account, Zoom organization is the vanity URL, plus you need to append SAML/SSO. So this would be the assertion URL for the application. I will add that, and everything looks good. So I'll click on register. Right. So we have the application created. So what I would do is as per this step, I will open up the help panel here, and I will download the IDP metadata file. So I can click on this download IDP metadata, and it will download the SAML metadata XML file. I will open this with Firefox, why not? Right, so this looks to be some kind of a this looks to be some kind of an error. Let me just quickly recheck. Okay. Why is it not showing the metadata properly? So let me quickly download the metadata file, or else I can show you the other configurations first, and then we can come back to that one. So here, another thing I would do is enable attribute profile. So this we will need later when we are configuring claims. And also I will need to click this option, always include attributes in response. So by clicking this one, when the authentication is successful, this SAML identity provider would send a SAML response with the user's claim in the response. If you don't have this, it won't send the user's claims. So this is something we need to add in the access configuration section. Next, we can click on update. Right. So let me quickly close out this one and log out and log in again to see if it fixes that issue. Okay. Right. So we can click on download. I will save this file for a change. Okay, so let me open it up in one of my text editors. Right. Let's hope for the best. This will work out. Right, so this one I think is fine. Yeah, now we have everything, the XML metadata file, everything we need. So now let's switch back to the Zoom organization. Now let's see what are the configurations we need to add on Zoom side. So this is the part where we are going to configure single sign-on for the Zoom organization. And here I will click on, to do that, I will click on single sign-on under the advanced tab. So I already had configured single sign-on. So this is the page you will get at the first go when you try to enable single sign-on. So I will click on that one. And here, as you can see, I have previously added some configurations. Let me quickly clear those out. Yeah, this one also. And so this should be the default page you will see when you click on single sign-on and enable single sign-on. So the first thing we need to configure here is something called the sign-in page URL. So this is where our metadata XML file comes in. So I will go back to that metadata XML file. We don't need the project window. And here, if you can see, there's a property called single sign-on service. There, we need to copy the location of this property. So I will copy this one, go over to the Zoom configurations and paste it in the sign-in page URL. The next one is sign-out page URL. For that also, in the metadata XML file, we have property called single logout service. Here also we need to copy the location of this property. I copied that one and I'll paste it here. The next thing we need is the identity provider certificate. So here in the metadata file, you will see a tag called X509 certificate, and you need to copy everything in that tag. I copied this one And if you want to be extra careful, you can validate this X509 cert by using some online tool. I will use SAML tool for this one. It has a feature to format X509 certs. So we are there already. Paste it down and format. One thing to note here is that we don't need this begin certificate and end certificate header and footer. We only need the certificate itself. So I'll just copy this one and go back to the Zoom settings and paste it down here. Yeah. All right, so this is already provided by Zoom. The next property is the issuer or the IDP entity ID. This also you can find it in the metadata XML file. Here, if I don't know if you can see something called entity ID. There's this property called entity ID. I will copy this one and paste it down here in the issuer section. All right, so those are the ones we need from the metadata XML file. Next, we will next also you can configure some security options as well. Let's do that here as well. So you don't need to come back to this page later. So I clicked on this option: sign SAML request, sign SAML logout request. So these are some additional security features that Zoom provides, where you can sign the SAML request from a certificate. So this is the certificate it will use, the service provider certificate. You can click on view here and it will give you this window, the certificate details. So we need to add this certificate back in the identity provider's service provider configurations. To do that, I will simply copy this one from this button. And next I can go over to the console app, where we were configuring our application, and in the general section you will see a certificate tab. So here we can provide the certificate directly or use a JWS endpoint. So since we have already copied the certificate, I will just paste it here. You can validate this certificate by clicking on this view certificate info, and it is saying some basic metadata about the certificate. So I think it should be fine, and I'll click on update. So by adding this certificate here, what it would allow us to do is that we can also validate the responses. So request and responses. So we can tick this enable request signature validation, and also we need to match the alias of the certificate. I don't know if you noticed the alias was in that metadata column. So it was something digicert global. I selected the alias, and next we need to make a note of this assertion response signing algorithm, assertion and response signing and digest algorithms. So in the Zoom organization configurations, we are using SHA-1. So here also we are matching that signing algorithm and the digest algorithm, so that won't be a problem. So since we have that out of the way, I think we can update here. So we have the basic configurations we need for the service provider and also the Zoom organization configurations, but we still didn't really do the user mapping thing. So when a user sign in to Zoom with single sign-on enable, Zoom would need to have users claims. To do that, we need to, in the identity provider's side, the service provider should provide these claims back in the response to Zoom. So we will take a look at how we can add those attributes in the service provider. So if you go to this attribute panel of the service provider configurations, you will see this page. Here, what you need to do is we will click on add attribute. So here we have a bunch of attributes that are, I will zoom in a bit. So we have a bunch of attributes here we can use. So I will add a few attributes we think we'll need. So I'll add email and first name and last name. And also I'll add display name. and I'll add the location and country. So these stuff are basic information about a user. So those stuff, you also can get an idea what kind of claims you need to map by going over into the Zoom's response mapping configurations. So if I click on this tab, first let me just quickly save these changes. Might sometimes get lost. Right, so we have those configurations saved, we have added. So I will go to this SAML response mapping tab here. When you click that, as you can see, we have a bunch of attributes that are pertaining to users and user. So we have email address, first name, last name, and also we have some advanced information mapping. We will actually not go into this stuff in this session. So here also you can add user roles, user groups as well in the claims. So as for demonstration, I have cleared out two attributes, the attribute for email address, the attribute for first name. Other stuff I have already finished, completed. So here we need last name, display name. Also we need something called mobile. We'll add that down as well. I think we didn't add it here. And organization we added, we didn't add title, I think. And yeah, URL we added. We also will need department. So since we already have that configured there, so I'll add this stuff here as well and click on save. So in this page you can always go back and edit these claims, and also you can add more claims if you feel like it. It's all up to you. So I think these claims are enough for a comprehensive user profile. So we have first name, last name, all these properties. So the service provider would send these claims back in the SAML response to the Zoom site. Right. So I think these configurations are good enough. And I'll click on update. So another important thing to notice is that when we add these claims, the user you have in your organization should also have these claims in the identity provider. So to give you an example, I have already created this user with all those configurations added, right? Okay, so let's go back to the Zoom side and see how we can configure this email address and first name attributes. So I will click on map to SAML attribute here, and it will ask to enter a SAML attribute. So if you can see the pattern, we need to enter the claim URL. So for the email address, what we have is HTTPS WSO2 claims email address. I will save these changes. You can, if you want to check, you can go back to the console lab, and in the manage attribute dialect section, we can click on local dialects and see all the claims we have here. So we'll just search email. So this is the email address. So this is the attribute URL. You can copy it from here as well. So in any of the claims you want to add for a user, you can always see the URIs and everything from this attribute section, local attribute section. The next thing we need is first name. So in identity provider side, the first name attribute, we use something called given name. Given name. I think it's search from first name. Yeah, first name, but the URL is actually given name. I will paste it down here and check this update at each SSO login checkbox and save the changes. So I think we have the basic stuff covered, and now I think we are good to try out our flow. Hope everything works. So another thing I quickly want you to notice that this Zoom organization would ask the user to verify the user's email once they try to log in for the first time. So to do that, we need to have an actual email address registered for our user we are going to try out with. So I will go to my user here and I will update the email. I will get it from something called this temp mail org. So to create a temporary email that would last for like a couple of hours. So it depends actually. So I can copy this one down and add it to my email section of the user and update. Right. Now I think we can try out the flow. I will first open up a private window just to be safe and go to my Vanity URL. Right. Okay, I will click on sign in. Right. So this is the step where the user is redirected to the authentication endpoint of the identity server. So I will add the user credentials of that user I just created. So before we get into this, I want to quickly show you the users we already have in the Zoom organization for demonstration purposes actually. So we currently have 2 users here, but we don't have the username Jody. So I will try to log in with Jody and we'll see how Zoom would provision the user in the Zoom organization. So here the IDP would ask the user for consent for sharing this claim. So if you remember, we configured some claims in the service provider configurations. So what this would mean is the user would need to provide consent for sharing these claims, and the service provider would send these claims back to the application, which is our Zoom organization. So I will click on select all and click on continue. Right. So now Zoom is asking, if you can see, I zoomed in a bit. So it's asking us to confirm the email address. So I'll go back to my temp email and check if we have any emails. I think this is the correct email, right? Yeah, it is the correct email. It might take a couple of minutes actually. So hope we can get the email soon. So until then, if you have any questions or any clarifications, please drop them down in the comment section or the live chat. This is taking a bit time. Let's just see. Oh, actually, I changed the email address now. No, it's just refreshing. Sure, what is so it should essentially send a email to the email address the user have configured. So if you go back to this page, oh no, we had to click on confirm email address. That was my bad. Sorry about that. So now it is saying we have sent an email to this email address. Okay. Now let's check our inbox. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So let's just open it up. So Zoom has sent us a mail asking us to activate the account. I will copy this link here. Go back to my private window and paste. That way I can be extra safe. All right, so now we are back. It's asking me to activate the Zoom account. So I will click on sign in with SSO option. Right. Now what Zoom is doing it, it's provisioning the user and creating a user in the Zoom organization. So if you can see here, we have a user called Jody created, and we have all the claims we added there, added here in the user's profile as well. So if you go back to our admin Zoom account and refresh this page, refresh the user's page, you will see we'll be having a new user called Jody, and yeah, we can either as an administrator you can manage the user from here, or else you can go over to the identity server's side and you can configure user information there as well. So that's all I wanted to cover today. So if you have any questions, I would like to take them now, and If you need any clarifications also regarding the configurations, anything. Let me quickly check the comment section. And meantime, if you have any questions regarding this video or any of our previous videos, you can always join our Slack channel, and our developers would be happy to help you with any of the configurations, any of the issues you face with. And also please subscribe to our Twitter account, follow our Twitter account, WSO2 IAM community. So all the handles are down there in the description. Right, so I think we don't have any questions at the moment. So I think we are good to follow our Twitter account. Obviously, we are good to conclude. Right. Right. Thanks for joining, and hope to see you guys in the next Identity in 15 video. Thank you.